All right, so calling to order the meeting for November 28th, 2022. We'll start off by taking roll call. So when I call your name, please take yourself off of mute if you are attending virtually, or otherwise state your presence. Chris?
Present.
Marlene? Andrew E?
Present.
David?
Good. Here you go.
Nicholas? Brenda?
Present.
Katie?
Here.
Ted? Danielle?
Present.
Brad?
Present.
And Andrew M. All right, moving on to the approval of minutes from the November 1st meeting. Did everyone have the opportunity to go through the minutes? Does anyone have any questions, comments, or corrections? All right, does anyone have any objection to the approval of the minutes from the November 1st meeting? All right, I hereby approve the minutes. Thank you. All right, are there any comments from the public today? Public here in person. All right. Okay, so not any public comment, just sort of moving forward here. Today, we will be going through 3 items, amendments to the rules and regulations for the virtual attendance policy, Blackberry Park update, and the Northwest Trolls art installation opportunity. But before we get started on that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, who's going to introduce our youth board.
Thank you so much, Zach. Good evening, everybody. Glad you're here. I know in our last meeting, we talked about our youth advisory board was busy getting ready for this new school year and identifying some appointees for park board. Happy to introduce Sanvi and Arshaya. Did I say that right, Arshaya? Oh, man. But I thought we could go around the table and the virtual table really fast and just quickly introduce yourself and maybe share how long you've been a member of the park board or a resident here with Issaquah. So I will lead off. Hi, Sanvi, Arshaya, welcome. Jeff Watling, Parks and Community Services Director. I've been in this role with Issaquah, boy, just over 6 years now.
And I'm Zach. I've been a member of the Parks Board for about a year and a half.
Hey, you want to introduce yourself? It's great. Where do you go to school? Pine Lake Middle. Great.
I lived in Issaquah for almost 5 years now, and I also live private.
I'm Danielle, and I've been on the park board, I think, since 2005.
I'm Jennifer Fink, park planner and project administrator, and I'm starting my 9th year here at the city.
Hi, I'm Amy Dukes. I'm the program administrator, and I'm also a resident of Issaquah, and I've been in this role for about 10 years.
And I'm Tisha Geezer. I'm the city clerk, and I've been here about 7 years.
And then I'm Hasanti Piathena, and I've been here with the city of Issaquah for a month. I'm also an Issaquah resident, and I've been living here for about a year.
Yeah, that's great. I know Hasanti so enjoyed coming to the youth advisory board meeting a couple of weeks ago. And so again, welcome. Why don't I'm going to try and go down the Brady Bunch list here. Brad, you're first.
Hi, everyone. I've been Issaquah resident and Squawk Mountain person here for 38 years and been on the park board for 10 and a half years.
Great, Brad. Andrew E.
Hello, everyone. I am Andrew Ellikin. I have been a resident of Issaquah since 2019, and I just became a park board member this year.
I see Andrew M. Hey, Andrew, joined us as well.
There we
Go
go.
ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Andrew Myers. This is my first year on the Parks Board, but I've lived in Issaquah for a long time, back and forth throughout my life, and actually attended Pine Lake Middle School back in the day. So glad to have you both here, the students.
Oh, we got a connection.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, hi, welcome. And I've been an Issaquah resident for 22 years, and Squaw Mountain as well for 22 years, and then a park board member for about 4.5, I think. Thank you.
That's great. Brenda?
Hello, welcome. I've been in Issaquah for 20 years on Squawk Mountain, like most of us, it seems like, and a park board member. This is my second year.
Oh, and hey, David's joined us. Hey, David.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, welcome to the meetings. I've been on the park board for about 4 months now and a resident of Issaquah for about 5.5 years. And I'm on Cougar Mountain, so on that side of town.
Good.
Got our hills representing. And Katie.
Oh, hi, I'm driving on 405, so pardon me. My name is Katie, and this is my first year. I live in Tallis, and I've been living in Issaquah for almost 18 years. Thank you.
It's great. Put hands on the wheel, Katie. Thanks, everybody, for the quick introduction. Again, welcome. So glad you're both here. Thanks, Zach.
Okay, so I think we'll turn it over to Tisha, who has the amendments to the rules and regulations.
Great, thank you, Chair. Just gonna pull up PowerPoint. This is a pretty straightforward proposal, but I do have a few slides to talk through this. So during COVID-19, we moved from having in-person meetings to all virtual meetings. The park board is one of the boards, and I know I've talked to you all recently about your being subject to the state's Open Public Meetings Act. So the governor, during the COVID-19 emergency, issued a declaration basically prohibiting in-person meetings of groups that fall under the Open Public Meetings Act. But requiring a virtual meeting or a meeting that people can join by telephone. So we purchased WebEx and began holding your park board meetings entirely virtually through 2020 and 2021, and even into 2022. The governor terminated his proclamation in July of this year, and so we began phasing our boards and commissions back to in-person meetings. Your group began transitioning to in-person meetings in September. Initially, we requested all board and commission members to attend meetings in person, but committed to retaining a virtual component for some of the city's advisory boards on an ongoing basis. We found during COVID that there was pretty healthy public engagement and attendance in our public meetings through the virtual element. So our commitment was to retain that for the park board and many of the city's other boards, but encourage the board members to attend the meetings in person, if not require that. We heard some feedback over the last few months that the boards have been moving back to in-person meetings, that board members like the option to attend virtually in certain cases where attending a meeting in person could be challenging. So that might be, something like a business trip or a car breaking down, or needing to recuperate from a medical procedure that makes, getting into your car and coming into a meeting difficult. So the mayor directed me to draft a proposed policy to bring to all of our city boards and commissions that put something in your rules about virtual attendance. So now, if you look at your rules and regulations, they don't at all mention a virtual element to meetings. So this recommendation that I have for you tonight is coming from the city administration, but these are your rules that you adopt as a board. 5 of you need to agree to any changes. So keep that in mind as I talk to you a little bit more about the proposed policy. So the policy as written states, proposed policy states that if you're unable to attend a meeting in person, you can attend remotely. So again, that would be something like business travel, something specific prohibiting you from a need to quarantine, something of that nature. And then you would, if you had advance notice of this need to participate virtually, you would let your staff liaison know, so that could be Jeff or Hasanthi, and notify them that you plan to attend a meeting virtually. In the rules, we request some advance notice of this because the rules also specify that a quorum of the board would attend meetings in person. And so there's a need for the staff to sort of manage how many board members might be participating virtually. This is being proposed for a few reasons. One of them is the mayor continues to strongly prefer that board and commission members attend meetings in person when at all possible. The second reason is, as Brad experienced tonight, sometimes there are technical issues. And if we don't have 5 of you in a meeting room and we have an issue with the audio, the technology in the room, or your technology, and we don't have a quorum physically in the room, the meeting has to stop, which means the people who have made the effort to travel to the meeting location, including members of the public, would not be able to proceed with the meeting. So those are the 2 reasons why that forum is required in person, with an exception made if your board has 2 or more vacancies. If attending virtually, the policy emphasizes that you need to be able to fully participate. So we don't want this to be a reason for you to feel compelled to attend a park board meeting when you're vacationing with your family in Hawaii. We want you to be on vacation. We want you to let us know if you're traveling and request an excused absence. And we also want you to request an excused absence if you are not able to have your camera on and be engaged in the meeting. Another restriction mentioned is on chairing. So the recommendation is that the chair be in person. So if Zach was unable to be here in person, the vice chair would chair. If neither of them were present, the board would elect another person to chair the meeting. So there were a few other things that are adjusted in the rules related to this virtual attendance policy. One is just to acknowledge that the city's commitment to retaining that virtual element for your regular meetings so that members of the public and staff can participate virtually. This also allows us to record your meetings. It may be that the board might choose to tour the park facilities or have some kind of special meeting that has a social element. We wouldn't necessarily have a virtual component for those special meetings. The other thing that is proposed tonight, which isn't really specific to the virtual attendance policy, but is something we thought we would address, considering that the park board did add additional alternate members recently, was to establish a procedure for how to select which alternates would serve in the absence of a regular member. So tonight, it appears you have 3 regular members who aren't here, so all 3 alternates are serving as regular members. But if that weren't the case, it's proposed that the alternates be selected beginning with the alternate who has the most seniority and sort of rotated in their service throughout the year as best we can keep track of that. And then the last thing the policy does is clarify that members of the public can provide comments virtually and that staff presenters may present to the board virtually as well. So a couple of options. This is not any kind of requirement. You can choose to operate fully in person and not adopt a virtual attendance policy at all. You can adopt the policy that I've brought to you tonight as is, or you can make changes to this to make it more flexible, change the in-person quorum requirement, etc. Also, if you would like some more time to consider this proposal, it is not time critical. We would like to formalize the virtual attendance if it continues to happen over the next few months, but certainly if you wanted to bring this back up at your January or February meetings, assuming the agenda allows for that, that's no problem. So I have a proposed motion here if we get that far tonight, and if not, that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Tishna. Looks like I see Andrew M. with a hand up there.
Yeah, so I just have a question as one of the resident alternates here on that specific slide, and because there was some at one or two meetings ago where I ended up voting and the board decided to, since I was in the room, I was tagged as the one voting, and I just wanted to clarify if that's part of the policy or if it's just going to be purely seniority at this point, and no opinion either way, but that was an ambiguous point that'd be good to address with whatever we end up with here tonight.
Andrew, this is Tisha. I can speak to that. So yes, this is why Jeff and I had some correspondence as I was preparing these amendments for your meeting, because a few of our boards have a methodology to selecting alternates, but the park board hasn't. And so, one thought that I had was to sort of have this preference for the in-person alternate, but that doesn't necessarily ensure equity and give the alternates time to participate, just depending on the circumstances of who might be virtual versus in person. Also, it can get a little tricky if you have multiple regular members who are not able to attend. And so we felt that this policy to select the alternates based on seniority and attempt to rotate them gave alternates more opportunities to experience being in that regular member role, and was maybe a little bit more of a stable methodology going forward. So that would trump.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Brad?
Well, overall, I think it's pretty good. I guess I would ask for or request or discuss for more flexibility. I think that if it weren't for COVID, I think the world would be a different place. But we're still struggling with viruses out there. And for me personally, that's one of the reasons why I'm not there. And I think that I may not be alone. I'll only speak for myself, however. I think that it makes sense that there be a quorum in person, so I do understand that and agree with that. But it doesn't really create any flexibility beyond that, quite frankly, unless you're out of town or in your deathbed. And so I think that I guess I would just at least open it up for discussion for a little more flexibility. I'm not exactly sure how that flexibility might work. Something that we can talk about. I do think, though, that when you have a little more flexibility, you also have a little more potential attendance. Because I think that if you make it too strict to not have virtual ability, except for those minimal conditions, you could end up potentially having an awful lot more requests for not attending and ask for an excused absence. And so I'm not sure that that serves the board either. So to me, that's kind of the snafu that we need to talk about, how to find some middle ground.
Thank you, Brad. Any other questions with regards to the proposed amendments? Danielle?
It's not clear to me in section, so the proposed virtual attendance policy, so what Brad was just referencing. So permission to attend, as I read this, permission to attend virtually will be granted as long as there will be a quorum in person. But there's an exception to that if we wouldn't meet quorum due to 2 or more vacancies on the board. So the only way that we would proceed without having a quorum in person would be if there are 2 like permanent vacancies on the board.
Yeah, so that, yes,
So,
that's correct.
so basically we'd be saying this, you can only have permission as long as there will still be 5 people.
Yes,
And 5 people, meaning, would that include alternates?
it would, any
It
5.
would, yes,
Okay.
5 of the 12, basically.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Looks like Brenda has a question.
Just on our regular meeting room, is it going to be the Steelhead Room or are we going to the Tibbetts Manor?
Great question. So we're going to sort of pose that to the group tonight. Was the intent to talk about that later this evening? We can certainly maybe entertain that now. I
Okay.
think our 2 meetings now at the Steelhead Room, and given some general public, when we get if all 12 of us are there, it really quickly becomes a cramped space.
Right.
As staff, as we look at what's on our work plan next year with the number of capital projects, we think we'll have enough months where we're going to have visitors. This just feels like a space that can handle the size of a park board a little better. So we're proposing moving here, but want to sort of open that up to all of you.
And that makes sense. I was thinking if you require more people to be there, when I was there last month, that was quite tight and we didn't have close to all of our members there. So if we move to Tibbetts Park, then it'll be or Tibbetts Manor, it'll be a whole different story.
Thank you, Brenda. I think that maybe segues nicely into starting a discussion on the proposed amendments. And just with anybody's opinion or moving forward on the discussion for the amendments and whether we like the proposed motion or Brad.
So kind of in follow-up, I wasn't real clear with what Danielle said, so I wanted to clarify that. My reading of the proposal is that even if you have 5 people present, you still need to fall within the guidelines of the conditions to be able to attend virtually. Is that accurate? I mean, that's the way I read it, is that you could have 5 people present and have requests to attend virtually, but if you don't fall within the conditions of being sick or out of town, Jeff wouldn't really, the way it's written, be able to approve a virtual attendance.
Brad, this is Tisha. That's right. That is how it's written now. So the 5 is a requirement, but it doesn't mean that if you've confirmed that 5 of your colleagues can attend, that you choose to meet virtually. There is that criteria in this proposed draft. Yes.
So I guess that's where I would maybe, discuss some potential revision to that would be to give more flexibility to Jeff and Santha to allow more virtual attendance as long as at least there are 5 people that are going to attend in person. I wish it weren't so complicated, but.
Well, again, the intent tonight is discussion. As Tisha said so well, this isn't requiring action tonight. So, I mean, I think it's good to have this discussion, get options on the table. We can bring this back with some proposed language in January for potential actions. So what I'm hearing you suggest, Brad, is keep the quorum in attendance minimum. Am I saying that right? At least 5 in attendance, but give a little bit more flexibility for someone choosing to attend virtually. Is that?
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly, Brad?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because I do understand the reason to really for technological reasons, for more than anything else. But I do understand why you need to have 5 people for a quorum If you are in a situation here, though, whether there's situations to vote on anything. Although really to have a true meeting, you have to have a quorum, so I'll take that back. So yeah, I do understand needing 5 people in attendance for a quorum. I just think having more flexibility beyond that is something that I would propose.
And I appreciate that option, Brad. I'm gonna say this from a staff perspective, not to counter that, but I just think as we're discussing and really wanting to open this up to opinions of all the park board members, there is, as we start talking about projects and having discussions, there is value in having more people in the room than us trying to manage tech as well as facilitate a meeting. And so we're flexible, but as professionals, we're also limited in that. And so again, I don't say that as a direct counter to Brad. I just say that as, you know, your park board, as park board members, and as you, I've so appreciated the new, just there's an energy with the park board. You're all lending such good insight to projects. I want to make sure we as staff are able to facilitate that as best we can. And is that better served mostly in person or this 50-50? Other thoughts, please.
I have a question, like a point of clarification. So, I see in the policy description that it's encouraged that, virtual attendance would be in limited circumstances, so work, travel, medical restriction, quarantine with notice, but I don't actually see that in the actual language that's drafted, and I'm probably just missing it, but I'm hoping you can.
It's not as extensive, so it just says, in section 6.1, however, if the member is unable to attend a meeting in person, they may request permission. So it doesn't include a list here of examples in
Okay,
the
so
actual policy.
So as I read that, that means that if somebody is hesitant to attend a meeting in person because of viruses going around or whatnot, not that they're actually sick, that they could still request permission to attend virtually, which I think addresses Brad, I might be wrong, but I think that addresses Brad's concern.
Well, it's worded that if a member is unable to attend, which, I mean, I guess that's a little bit subject to interpretation and could be better clarified. To me, that implies there's something preventing due to your location, due to a transportation issue, due to a childcare issue, due to a medical issue, you're not able to physically be at the meeting. But that could be something worth clarifying.
I guess we can read that differently. It was just much more clear in the policy description. So, okay.
Thank you, Danielle. Chris?
Yeah. I think the number of times I can't count. I don't remember any times when virtual meeting has really been a problem. Where we couldn't make it happen. And I think there are a lot of reasons why people may need to just attend on occasion. And I would actually suggest that we revise the wording for our board to say, attendance is preferred. And I understand that. I agree with that. And it's recommended, but I don't think it should be required for a quorum. I think it's unnecessary. I think we've proven it's unnecessary. And there might be people, I'm not one of them, but there might be people with reasons that they really need to keep, they would choose to keep private, or they may have a high risk that they don't really want to be making public, but they can still be a contributor and valuable. And I think we're at this point now of 2 years of hybrid meetings that we can do this. And if we settle on a location, I think the most difficult part of our meetings is actually getting I can't really hear the people in the room as well as I can hear everybody else that's in their own room. And so I recommend that we actually consider it, making it just recommended and, suggested, but not required.
I really appreciate that, Chris. And again, I appreciate your perspective of doing what we can to remove barriers. And as staff, we too want to do all we can to facilitate and encourage participation. And again, we're adaptable. I'm going to say this one more time, and I think you spoke to it, Chris, is there's a reality. And if we enter into this in the coming years, we're proposing something that's different than the last 2 years. And I'll be honest, 100% virtual is easier than 50-50, right? 100% in person or 100% virtual has there's a manageable element to it that, this hybrid, literally a hybrid, it just brings with it things that we're going to do everything we can to adapt, but it gets tricky. Enough said.
We had a comment from our youth board member.
Yeah.
Just a question for Tisha. So the rules and regulations and like all this like virtual attendance policy and stuff, does it just apply to the park board or does it apply to like all the other commissions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So each of the city's advisory boards and the city council, they all have their own rules. So, and that is one of the things that is influencing this recommendation that I spoke to earlier is our city council has felt that the in-person attendance is important. And so they are only allowing themselves to participate virtually during a declared emergency and kind of for similar reasons that were listed in this policy. But it is up to the individual boards. I've taken this policy to 2 of the city's advisory boards that have pretty much accepted it as proposed, but I expect multiple boards to request changes to the rules, and that's absolutely within your purview. We're just again representing some of our observations. I did want to take just a quick minute to identify some of the mayor's rationale that she's shared with us staff about that encouraging the in-person attendance. One of those reasons is synergy of the group. I think during COVID, we found that especially bringing on new members, it was harder for the boards to develop a synergy and connect, even those few moments before a meeting starts and you can connect a little bit or after a meeting and wanting to just try and encourage that connection and feeling like some in-person attendance really helps with that. And another reason that she's spoken to, and this isn't the case tonight, but we do still have a number of residents who are choosing to participate in person to provide their comments, and just so having those, having that face to look to when you're speaking. I'm actually struggling with it a little bit tonight, to be honest with you, because I feel a little split. But so those are some of the things motivating this recommendation, but absolutely the group of you, 5 of you, need to ultimately agree on what the requirements will be for the park board, and because you'll be the ones living with it.
Thank you. Katie?
Oh, hi there. Yeah, I would like to have the opportunity for the board meeting to be more flexible because, some of us, we do not have 9 to 5 jobs. Like, for me, I'm a pharmacist. And so I don't have a 9 to 5 job. So I work until 6 o'clock and then commuting home or trying to make it to the board meetings on time. And then I also have to go pick up my daughter. It's just lots of logistics as to why sometimes it's not feasible or possible for me to be there. So I feel like having the virtual option, it allows me to still participate and and be part of the board. So I just would like to say that I would like to have that option to be more flexible. than just in person. I mean, if I could make it in person, trust me, I would. But they're just, you know, life happens, jobs and responsibilities, and I don't want to always be reaching out to say, well, I can't make it because of this, because of that. And so having the virtual opportunity, I was able to get on while I'm driving home and then get home, you know, and participate. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Brad?
Well, I talk too much, but sorry about that. It's just my nature. Good comments from Katie. I just wanted to make one comment in reference to what Jeff had to say in terms of the 50-50 is more difficult. You know, when we first started doing virtual meetings, it was probably difficult too, but I think that for the most part, we ended up really coming together and making that a very effective way of meeting with not only the board, but also for the community. And so I do think that with time, a hybrid concept will get much better and easier. One other thing I'd like to make comment about is video production, because a lot of people, especially from the community, actually look at these either on the cable station or on YouTube. And quite frankly, after looking at these, the video cameras that are set up in the Manor and at the Steel Room are not very good. They're not very good video production. So for someone, you know, the camera's moving around trying to catch somebody talking, can't see it, can't hear it. Quite frankly, from a production part of it, it actually is better virtually. You can see the screens that are put on, you know, in terms of the presentations. You can see the people, you can hear the people. So production-wise, which is something we have to give consideration to for the community, is actually done, I think, better virtually than when it's in person. My last comment is I totally agree with the mayor, and I talked to Jeff about this too. The synergy is really a very important factor of why you meet in person. It does help with relationship building, team building. There's clearly value in meeting in person. But we're in a new world, and you know, trying to figure out this hybrid concept, which I think is here to stay, you know, what's the best way of splitting hairs? So thanks, and I'll shut up at this point. That's my last comment.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you. We have Brenda and then Daniel.
Okay, I think going on with that is because we are such a unique board. We have a wonderful opportunity that we've talked about in the past of meeting in our parks, where our community of those parks can come join us and feel closer, and we can communicate with them and understand their needs better. So if, as a parks board, we'll veer a little bit from the city and look at on those special opportunities of hopefully we will do this 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. And then those will really emphasize getting your board there. But on the regular meetings, and if you want to go virtual, go virtual.
Thank you, Brenda. Daniel.
I'm wondering, it sounds to me like most people who have spoken up have asked for more flexibility than having 5 people in the forum. And so I'm wondering if it would be a good time to just sort of show of hands to see if people are thinking that. And if that's the case, then I think we should actually table this for future meetings so we could perhaps rewrite, instead of trying to make like little changes on the fly. It might be better to table this discussion and come back with another proposal. If that's okay.
That was totally agree. That was the intent tonight, is let's have a discussion, let's take a pulse, and then,
Yeah. So I'm wondering, there's more people virtually tonight than not, so I'm just wondering if people can somehow indicate, maybe by raising their hand virtually or in person, if they would like more flexibility than the 5-person requirement to be in quorum. And if you would like more flexibility, then let's come back with that.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks like,
Yeah, I think from an informal show of hands, it appears as though it seems like everybody's kind of in consensus that we'll table this for the time being and come back with perhaps some revised verbiage on
So,
Or a couple of alternates to present.
Did have a room show of hands as well?
yeah, I think.
Okay.
I'm willing to.
No, I just
Flexibility.
trying to do it, yeah.
So I'm hearing interest in some additional flexibility. Tisha, I think we can sort of take this discussion and propose some language.
Yes, I'm thinking here about, it sounds as if, there's a desire to not only reduce or eliminate the required number of people in the room, but maybe to not have criteria for when you can attend virtually and when you need to attend in person.
That's what I'm hearing from the room. And then I also feel like, I don't know if the 5-day notice is like hard and fast, but that is also something where, if someone's actually sick, that's not viable, right? Like that's only works for like
Agreed.
a business. That's like a pre-planned type of thing.
Today's a great example, right? I mean, people went, hey, I got a cold this morning. And yeah, totally understand. Okay.
I'd also like to just say, I agree with, in person is way better if we can do it.
Yeah, and I guess I would.
If we can try to encourage maybe a couple times a year to do that, so we, I don't know. I think everybody in the world is dealing with this right now, right? Hybrid, virtual, how are we gonna do it?
Yeah, no, so appreciate the discussion. I would like to, and I think whatever language we come up with, I think there is a point of emphasis, and I hope everyone understands this. I think having some language in there that the preference is in person. That being said, here's the virtual policy. And as I said, and as you all spoke, we're immensely adaptable as staff, but just as long as you all certainly understand, hybrid brings a whole different set of variables than all virtual or all in person. And Brad, I think you said it well. The camera technology even is good in a hybrid is going to be, it is what it is. And it's different and it's a little bit more challenging. But we love a good challenge here in the Parks Department. So we'll bring it back in January. Love the discussion. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. So I think we'll be moving.
And thank you, Tisha.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Tisha. All right. I believe Jennifer has an update on Blackberry Park.
Just a quick moment here to share my screen. Hi, everyone. I'm here today to give you a quick update on Blackberry Park. As you may recall, this park came to the city in 2016 from King County. This was a residential single-family lot that sat on their surplus land list that neighbors took their time, blood, sweat, and tears and finances and created a park on. And when that property came to the city in 2016, we met with the neighborhood to talk through some of the different challenges that the property had because it wasn't up to some of our safety codes and some improvements, but also to see what people wanted in the community as for their neighborhood park. I know some of you are new, and to kind of backtrack as to kind of where this process has been. After 2016, after we met with the community, we also in 2018 did our park strategic plan update. And then in early 21, we had funding to begin this project, capital project, and started additional engagement with the community in February and in April. And by August of last year, we had a preferred concept that the community had settled upon. I'll kind of walk through some of that as we look through the process, but last year, October through March, we did our construction documents. And in late summer permitting, we went into late summer and we did our permitting and received our land use notice of decision as well as our site work permit. We bid an award and issued a notice to proceed in March through July of last year. And at the beginning of August of this year, the park closed for construction. And the park hopefully will be opening the end of November, and that means a few more days, weather pending that we don't get a massive snowstorm tonight. To kind of back up a little bit as to where we went through some of our public engagement. These are all slides from prior presentation and community engagement opportunities. But look, here's what the park looked like back in the day. In 2006, the neighborhood built the playground, and in 2016, it got transferred to the city, and in 2017, we had met with the community.
Can I add one thing real fast, Jen? Because I just, a little bit of that history. So as Jen said, the neighbors really took it upon themselves to build this. I'm going to be frank. I'm still Jeff, but I'll be frank. King County wasn't really happy that the neighborhood built on this and built just, play elements that weren't necessarily to public code. And so part of this transfer to the city was the county didn't want to address the problem anymore. And so I just give that context that as a parks department, as we had the chance to meet with the neighbors early on, this was really, how do we remedy this problem? And how do we honor and applaud the neighborhood that turned this into a neighborhood park? But we need to get it up to public park code. So thanks, Jen.
No, good background. And as to why some of the early neighborhood meetings were, we don't want you to change things. And it's educating and bringing the understanding that we need to, for not only for public safety, but for long-term viability of the space as well. So we went into some of the existing conditions, that play structure. You can see over in here, there's been an open lawn area. There was a gazebo over in here, and there was an old cherry tree that had to come down. And the community also built a pickleball court. And through our public engagement process, this was from our April engagement, we proposed 2 different themes of play and asked the community what they really reflected with and what they wanted to see. And through public comment, it was, and their preference came down to the Caster's Castle, which upon further refinement of the design in order to meet budget, morphed into this final proposed design. And this is what we moved forward with into construction. Now the fun part. So as we talked about, here are some of the before pictures of the site. There was also a mass of blackberries, hence the park's neighborhood name, that were on site. The pickleball court had not been surfaced. The playground equipment was reaching end of life. And now we're going through, doing a little walk through during the constructions. You can see the play structure had been removed, put up our banner for the neighborhood, and the sport court got resurfaced this summer. And then demolition continued and excavation continued. And this is one of the fun parts. I love demolition, by the way. Seeing things get torn up, and it's the hope of what's coming on. And so this is really, now I'm going to walk you through some of the structure and some of the things that started happening on site. You can see the concrete forms for the borders around some of the play structures. We have these nice logs out there that are part of the design concept. And here's some of the play equipment in a big crate sitting on site. And then construction with the concrete. We've got a new accessible pathway. We have a new access over to the sport court, which was not there previously. We also have this nice entrance. And the play equipment started going up. Last week, we had some weather. We had some very challenging conditions we had to work through. During this project, as we knew when we awarded, we were faced with potential supply chain issues. That got met with contractor labor issues. And so we had some unprecedented and unanticipated challenges to the project. However, in working with the contractor, we were able to figure out ways. And in the last, 4 weeks, we've really taken quite a few strides in making progress. Playground got installed. And this is a new slide that was not in your packet. These are pictures from today. When I was out on site, our wood fiber is blown in. We've got one more load coming tomorrow. We've got a sensory circle for young ages to be looking out on. And hopefully this coming week, we've got a little bit more work to do. We've got hydro seed tomorrow, additional lawn prepare. We've got a punch list walk we need to go through, and assuming all goes swimmingly, later this week, we hope the security fences will come down and the park will be open for public use. There will be some unfinished elements that will have to come back in the spring and address, which, let me go back to the concept here. Which is going to be this blue underneath the swing set area, the rubberized poured-in-place concrete, or poured-in-place rubberized surfacing that we've really hit some cold night temperatures as of late, and that it's not a good time for that material to set up. So we'll come back and do that. We've got a small little piece of concrete work in here that we're going to have to do. And there is a curved bench right back here. It was not the right shape of curve. They built the bench off of the wrong dimension, and so we're waiting for a new bench. In order to do the port in place, only a few day closure, given warmer weather, we should be able to get that done in no time and only close that section of the park in order to get that done. Other work should not impact the park
A good
significantly.
part of that solution, Jan, is we're putting chips in where that port in place is. So as the community uses it through the winter, the swings will be
Yes.
available and accessible. We'll then, after we do the pour and play, we'll move those chips. We'll move those chips elsewhere within the system. So
You can see they're in there
adaptable,
right now.
adaptable to the weather. Yep.
So anyways, there you go. Look forward to finishing yet another project. Any questions? Yes.
So the first time that this park was built, was it like a neighborhood park? Was it just decided by that neighborhood, like, hey, we're gonna build a park? And then was it claimed by King County later?
No.
Yeah, so King County owned the parcel, owned the property. I'm not going to say the neighbors did something they shouldn't have, but the neighbors basically put stuff on public property that isn't, King County didn't like that. So it sort of functioned as this neighborhood park, but it was kind of a renegade park. And that the county was trying to tell the neighbors, hey, you need to take that stuff off.
So the neighbors, they built that park?
The neighbors didn't build, the neighbors put in a play set, put in elements. And so this, they put it in, but it was never okay for them to do it. So rather than the county saying, hey, you need to take it all down, the county said, hey, city, here, you take this property and you fix it.
Yeah.
And so this is really part of these are residents that worked really hard. As we take that stuff out, let's put in some neighborhood park amenities and really let this be a wonderful neighborhood park. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I think we'll move forward to the Northwest Trolls. Amy has a presentation.
And as Amy's doing that, Amy Dukes, our arts administrator, is joining us tonight. I had the privilege of joining Amy at the Arts Commission meeting last week. Is that just last week? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. It's a blur.
A little while ago.
Amy and I have been working with a group for a number of years now on what really is a pretty exciting arts opportunity. This has morphed, as you'll hear, and has morphed into an opportunity for us to consider this art installation in one of our city parks. So we thought it would be really worthwhile to give you all an update on this exciting opportunity. Get your feedback. We're still in process of making a decision as a city. We've got a meeting here in the next week or two with Snoqualmie Tribe to talk with them before we make a final decision. But it's just a fun project. Hats off to Amy and the Arts Commission. Really look forward to getting all of your feedback on the opportunity.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks so much for having me. So again, I'm Amy Dukes. I'm the Arts Program Administrator and the liaison to the Arts Commission. And now, as of 2 years ago, part of the Parks and Community Services Department. And I know for me, the hardest part of a hybrid meeting is wearing reading glasses. I need like 5 of them, so I'm sorry if I keep taking them. I don't know. So right now, we're calling this project the Northwest, or we're not calling it, the organizers are calling it the Northwest Nordic Troll Hunt. And just to preface that, it's because there will be multiple locations around. Initially, they thought maybe around the state. It now seems like they're going to be around Puget Sound. But right now, it looks like there might be as many as 7 or 8 sites. It is a hunt, so they are hoping to keep it fairly confidential until these things start popping up around the community. So because you're being recorded, I'm not going to list out who might be working on this project. But the Arts Commission is really excited about it, and we hope that you guys are excited about it too. And just to let you know, the organizers are the Scan Design Foundation. They're based out of Seattle, but basically focused on sharing Scandinavian culture in America. They have recruited a world-renowned artist to work on this project with them. And then the Nordic Museum in Ballard is also one of the organizing partners. And then these various sites of which Issaquah may become one. So I think I might have just told you everything that's on this slide. It's a large-scale public art project. It is featuring the artwork of Nordic artist, or Danish environmental artist Thomas Danbo. You could Google him and find lots of really cool YouTube videos, and he's been in National Geographic and on NPR. So I totally encourage you to look more into his story. He uses entirely recycled materials for these sculptures. They are intended to be temporary. So temporary in public art is usually somewhere between a few months and like 5 to 7 years. So we think that if we do have a troll in our park, it will probably be in that 5 to 7 year range. There are communities that have had his work that have really taken ownership of it and taken good care of it and made it last much longer than that. So it is possible that it could be more permanent than temporary, I guess. And then they're going to be, this slide says 10 sites. They're still working on the number of sites, but right now it looks like probably 7 to 8. And then, as I mentioned, Thomas Danbo is internationally acclaimed. He's won lots of awards. He's an environmental artist. He likes his works to tell an environmental story. And so these will tell the story of the watershed in our area. And he will make each troll site specific and tell the story of that place that it is. He has done this all over the world. I don't know if this is completely up to date, but I have 80 trolls listed here. And he's got several commissions currently underway, including one on the East Coast. So his plan is to come to the Puget Sound region in the summer of 2023. And he's also working on the East Coast as well in 2023. So he's going to bounce back and forth with his team. And then the story that the trolls are going to tell, which is a huge part of this project, is going to be about watershed protection, repairing habitats, and also about honoring the land and the importance of taking care of your land. And he is in conversations with various Coast Salish tribes and is making arrangements right now to talk with the Snoqualmie tribe. So that was an important component to, I think, everyone that's involved in this project, actually, and all the communities kind of requested that he make that dialogue part of his process. And there's some conversation now about having perhaps some Native artists travel to work with him in Europe and do some kind of cultural exchange. So that may become a bigger component of the project. So that's all I have right now. There is a lot of this is still kind of unfolding, but because we wanted to have the opportunity to move forward, we did take this to the Arts Commission. They're super excited about it, and basically made a motion to support it, whatever that might mean. We don't know what the financial commitment is going to be at this time because the the Scan Design Foundation is actually actively fundraising for the project. So as much money as they're able to contribute, it would reduce the amount that each of the individual sites would have to commit. So I don't have a dollar figure right now, but the Arts Commission did make a motion at their last meeting to move forward as much as we could commit without committing. So happy to take questions. Or
Yeah.
Jeff might
Oh,
have
can I just add a couple things, Amy? So appreciate that overview. So a couple of specifics, but budget related as the city manages the arts fund. And as we've talked with administration about this opportunity, there's funding not only in the 2022 budget, but some funding within the 2023 budget. So there's some ability for us to sort of respond to this opportunity. In terms of specific location that we're looking here in Issaquah, so you know, and some of you might be aware, Amy and I were in discussions with this group probably 3 years ago now. Before the pandemic, this was being sort of explored and what Issaquah's role might be in it. At that time, they were also talking with the state park. We were in conversations with state parks, big S state parks, not just Lake Sam State Park, but how could state parks play a role in multiple sort of Puget Sound areas that included Lake Sam State Park. We were taking a supportive role in that sort of being a potential Issaquah site. Through a number of decisions earlier this year, State Parks is not in a position to play that role. And so we wanted to continue to have this exploratory conversation with this troll hunt opportunity and how Issaquah could be a site. And so what we're looking at now and considering is Confluence Park. How might, and given some of the goals that existed with Lake Sam State Park with the artist, with Dambo, in terms of the watershed role that Issaquah Creek plays, how could we still do that same narrative and tell that story within Confluence Park? Any siting within Confluence Park we're talking about would be outside the buffer. We'd be looking at all of those parameters as we would with any art installation. But we certainly feel, and as we've had conversations with the Arts Commission, as we've had conversations with administration, we'd love to get your feedback. We think Confluence Park, its proximity to Old Town, its proximity to Gilman Village. I think the marketing opportunity that this troll hunt has, that if residents from all throughout Puget Sound are coming to discover a troll, to be that much closer to restaurants in Old Town or Gilman Village, really presents a pretty cool opportunity for parks to be a canvas for an art project and what sort of integrated art into public space can be. And it can also be an economic, sort of an economic incubator. So thanks again, Amy. Questions, thoughts, comments?
Thank you. It looks like Andrew E.
Yes, thank you, Amy, for that presentation. I think, and there is probably expectation on high volume of tourists visiting the troll locations, right? So I'm curious if there is any data around the expected increase in traffic and how Issaquah would be able to manage that increase in traffic, and like wearing the hat of someone who would live in the area of potentially the location Confluence Park. I'm sure there will be concerns from the neighboring area on trash management or parking or being overrun by tourists. So I'm curious if there is any information around that that has been collected so far.
So we don't have specific data. This is a little bit different than a lot of the projects he's done, which have been on private, more private property within like botanical gardens.
Single
or,
site.
Sites that are more contained. This project actually, will have the potential for people to visit multiple sites throughout the region. So in one way, that should disperse the amount of traffic at any one time. But I don't really have comparable data to share. Just for instance, like at a botanical garden, yes, it definitely increased their visitation dramatically. But it's hard to say with it being in like 8 locations around. And they will be rolled out pretty quickly, like week to week. So people would probably be visiting them primarily in August, September, October, but not all at once. So it's a great question, and this is good feedback for me too, because these are questions that I can take back to the organizers and say, hey, we presented this to our park board and they do have questions and would like more information. So I will take that back to them and see how they might be able to quantify it, and I can share that with Jeff to share with all of you.
Yeah, it is a new model, Andrew, but it's a great question. It's something, even as we consider Confluence, making sure we have the adequate support facilities there. How would we, as that site rolls out, where and how are we encouraging people to park? How are we sort of encompassing that as part of the bigger media release in terms of, hey, when you come visit Issaquah, here's where to park, here's, how to come explore or come find the troll in town.
I will say, because we did not this past summer, but 2021 summer, we did host a Shakespeare in the park at Confluence Park. I believe the Seattle Shakespeare counted the attendance at about 400 people, and the park accommodated them really, really well. Granted, that was just for a one-time event, but I wouldn't anticipate that there would be 400 people coming to see the troll at the exact same moment. So I do know that the parking was able to accommodate that many people for a one-time event. But again, I know probably not quite the data that you're looking for, so I'll try to get more in that.
Thank you, Andrew. Marcia?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 questions. So first, like you said, we'll have like 7 to 8 trolls. How long would it take for like one troll? And also, like, has this project already begun, or are you guys?
So a lot of the planning has already happened, and some of the sites have committed to participate. But a lot of the sites have questions like we do and want there to be conversations with the tribe and other things. So not all those conditions have been met. So I'd say they only have maybe 4 sites committed right now. But they're hoping by the end of the calendar year to pretty much have everybody committed. And then the artist already made some field trips to the area and came up with some concepts for the trolls. And so once everyone commits, then he will begin the design process. And he builds the large head portion of the sculptures in his studio in Denmark and ships them. And then the rest of the troll is built on site, primarily with volunteers. As a kind of community building project. So the process will be, they're looking for commitment, late this year, early next year. we'll begin, if we decide to participate, we'll begin that design process through the spring and into, probably just spring. And then he would come over in the summertime and begin the installation. And they told us that the installation really only takes about a week once he is on site with the large head. So the head of the troll is really the more intricate part that takes time. Yeah.
And just to clarify one thing too, Issaquah would host one troll.
Yeah, just
7 or 8 would be throughout the Puget Sound area. So from, within probably a 40 to 50 mile radius. So truly a very broad hunt. Yeah.
I have a question. So as far as like where the trolls are being placed, is it gonna be placed in like a trail type area? Like in the middle of like, woods and such, like in the pictures that you were showing? Or is it gonna be somewhere near like a boardwalk or like a road where it's just, you could see it as you're passing by, you don't have to like, go inside a trail to go look for it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's actually something that the artist considers very significantly. And he wants there to be a mix of trolls that are more easily discoverable, as well as ones that are maybe tucked in to the landscape a little more. So they'll all be very dependent upon the site that is chosen. And initially, it's so interesting to go through this process. As Jeff said, we've been talking with this group for almost 3 years. Initially, it was like, there will be 25 sites and you will hike to the top of the mountain and up the truck. They were like, oh, wow, top of Tiger Mountain, Cuckoo Point, that would be really cool, but then the reality of getting things created and all of the logistics that it require have led them to like a more manageable set of sites. But there will be some that are more tucked in that you kind of have a surprise moment, and then ones that are more accessible. And I do think they want a decent number of them to be accessible so that people who have mobility challenges are able to enjoy them too. So
As we consider Confluence Park, we would want accessibility along one of the trails. So again, there's maybe a happy medium of a little bit of a peekaboo discovery, but it's not, again, it's probably along a trail outside the buffer area, et cetera.
And how tall usually are these trolls?
yeah, they really vary, but they can be, 20 feet tall, they can be 8 feet tall. It depends on how they're, developed, like they might be sitting versus standing. I was able to visit the main botanical garden and see the exhibit that was there, and some of them were enormous, like tall as the trees. So it just depends on the site.
I think we have some other questions with the group. Yeah.
Brad?
Thanks, Zach. Boy, I'm really excited about this. I can't say enough good things about supporting it. I've known about it for some time because of my involvement with the state park. But I think that, and it's just perfect. It's a win-win-win-win. I think it creates the potential for partnerships, which is really great. The thing that I really like, not only is it, an outstanding art aspect, but the intention or mission of it also being environmental, is a huge issue. I think it's just perfect for the Issaquah Creek corridor. I would not necessarily rule out some other potentials within the Issaquah Creek corridor. A lot of that probably has to do with what the artists might want to do. Certainly Confluence, I think, is a great spot, but there are others. I think being close to the waterway or Issaquah Creek would be an advantage. I just think this is just an outstanding thing, and I certainly hope that the city agrees and supports it. I see this as something that could really be a catalyst for the Issaquah Creek corridor as we move into planning, strategic planning for the corridor. I think that this could really be a catalyst to get the community more engaged in the Issaquah Creek corridor concept. And so I don't know. I can't say enough good things about it, so I'll stop there. But you got my vote 10 times on this one.
Thanks, Brad. Andrew? Ben?
Yeah, likewise, want to say thank you, Amy, for bringing this together. It's super cool to learn about this project and excited to hopefully Issaquah can be a part of it. Would love to see it happen. Out of curiosity, I was just wondering about the nature of the conversation with the tribes and what any potential, concerns or questions might come up through that process.
Yeah, I think, so the artist has had, a few conversations already with, some other tribes, not the Snoqualmie tribe, that have gone really well. I'm not really sure I think his intention is to let the tribe lead the conversation. And so I can certainly report back after he has the conversation with Snoqualmie.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, as we've reached out and developed very clear relationships with the Snoqualmie tribe and their intergovernmental team, we're the ones that wanted to make that connection as well. So Amy and I will be part of that discussion as well. So even, it sounds like the artist really has a respect and understanding for ancestral lands, and recognizing that, I think this first discussion, this first meeting is going to be more listening than anything. So we'll keep you all posted. And again, I think it's really, really important for us as a city to understand from that listening before we make a final decision as a city whether we want to do this or not. So more to come.
Great.
I'm just curious as to how much the troll will be like tailored to like the just overall themes of Issaquah just being like salmon obviously being a very integral part of the city and everything. Like how much will the troll
Yeah, I think it'll be very site specific. There's that larger story that's being told about our watershed area, but I think it will be relating directly to the site. So if it is in Confluence Park, say, the creek would be an important component. That story.
Great thing.
I think Chris wanted a comment. I saw him add something to the chat a while ago.
Chris?
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. I have a cold, so I muted myself while I sneezed really loud to not disturb all of you, and then I had to get unmuted.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, you have my vote right as is. Some things I think would be great to consider is how to incorporate the tribal connection to the area. And I think that's important. And then the other question is not really for you, Amy, I don't think, but if anybody is aware of the timeline for proposed additional parking spots along the Holly Street side of Confluence Park, how far out is that with respect to this? I think that's somebody else's budget, but that certainly would help with Andrew's question that he raised.
Absolutely. Yeah, Chris, I don't know, that's a right-of-way project that I don't even know shows up on the transportation improvement plan, the 6-year plan. So it's
The 6 year.
not on the 6 years. So that's, 10 years likely. Like Amy said, and I appreciate, the Shakespeare in the Park event was a really good test for us in knowing that Confluence, there's a lot of interest in having events. This wouldn't be a singular event, but to know that there were the 400 people there, and I think the communication that the theater group sent out in terms of where to park and encouraging people to park, it really, we didn't see those troubling conflicts with that event.
When you had that event, not just for parking, but just other like restrooms, did we bring in additional facilities or like porta potties or?
Yeah,
We did not.
We did not.
We didn't.
In hindsight, maybe we should have, but we did. I don't know. We just don't know what's the limit on the number of people, because it was actually a much larger turnout than we anticipated. But we did not, and we just made sure that the facilities were open longer and that they didn't lock after the play was over.
Yeah, so we had, yeah. I think
Yeah, I would think people aren't going to be they would be visiting the troll, but not necessarily, hanging out.
I'm just thinking like the first week or, like, so you might need to leave some stuff up.
We're stocking more frequently.
Yeah, I think we're gonna want to gauge that. I think that's partnering with the other, and most of these are other public agencies. I guess I'll speak to that. So we won't be the only one as a public agency trying to manage this installation. So I think we're all kind of leaning on each other in terms of how do we learn, what's that first week look like?
Yeah.
What's week 4 look like, right?
Yeah, hopefully we won't be first, so.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple other little questions. One, you mentioned that these are, intended to be temporary. I'm assuming though that it's not like other public art that might rotate to other locations, like this would just be here, and it basically is just temporary, like, once it wears out, basically it comes down.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as it's useful and safe, we would keep it up. But we're not under an obligation to keep it there.
And then are these trolls like, do people climb on them? Like, are they, like they're designed to sort of accommodate, like deal, like have people touching them and climbing on them? Okay. I love it. I think it's super cool. I don't know if you need us to officially make a recommendation or not.
Not necessarily, again, art commission led project. We just thought, again, this, it's so great to have arts within the department, and how do we sort of celebrate this, so often parks are the canvas for these arts projects. So I think just keeping you updated. I agree. I think perhaps January, as we know more information, perhaps having an action item and giving you all the opportunity to sort of lend a supportive thumbs up would be great. So we'll have a lot more information come that January meeting. So more to come.
Thanks again for having me. I think, the Arts Commission is always really wanting to connect with the Parks Board too. So this would be a nice opportunity for us to work.
Any other questions, concerns?
Thanks for the thumbs up, Brenda.
Yeah.
All right. I guess with that said, we'll move on to the reports. So start off with my chairperson's report. Just kind of wanted to make an announcement that's kind of exciting to me as an ultra runner. That Issaquah will be hosting a run up for air or a RUFA event on March 11th. Basically doing laps up to Tiger Mountain. This is basically a program that's endurance events are empowering nonprofits to basically address air quality and climate change issues in local communities. So typically these events have been in Utah, Colorado, and Tiger Mountain will be Washington's first in this event, which is pretty exciting.
When you say ultra, this is like a 5K?
Well, it'll have a little bit of everything, 3 hours up to 24 hours. So as much as you can cover in that time, and basically,
That's awesome.
So it's a fun event coming up next spring. And also been doing some volunteering for the Box SWIP surveys. Not necessarily Issaquah, but although Larry Schwitters, who's in charge of it, lives in Issaquah, and actually one of the main chimneys that's a nesting point for the box swips, or like as their southern migration, is in Selleck. And basically this last year, and there's also other chimneys around Western Washington, like Monroe Wagner is one of the main ones, but all the way down the coast. And 1.6 million swifts were counted in this southbound migration, including 43,000, which were at the Selleck schoolhouse chimney, which is just down the road from Issaquah. If you're interested in volunteering in that, you can reach out at happenings.org. And then just a quick count on the Chinook salmon. It appears 4,600 adults have returned, and about 3.4 million eggs collected to this point. And I know the salmon hatchery is always looking for volunteers for egg picking, which is a pretty fun project. And always get the chance to maybe spot the little tiny salmon swimming in the eggs once it reaches a certain point. So it's a fun opportunity to sort of you know, give back to the salmon and community in that way.
So if someone's interested in volunteering, who do they contact?
I believe that would be the Friends Fish.
Friends of Issaquah Salmon Hatchery.
Yes, yep, and there's a sign-up sheet for that, and you know, several opportunities available. Usually it's about a 3 or 4 hour shift. It's a lot of fun. That's all for me.
So
yes, the
board reps have an opportunity to share, please.
Okay. So starting off, I want to say that we have a lot of new youth reps on all of these different boards. Now starting with the park board, and we have 2 other youth board reps who we will be alternating with at meetings. We have youth board reps on the Arts Commission, the Sister Cities Commission, which I am also on. The Environmental Board, the Equity Board, as Jeff just mentioned, the Friends of the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery, the Fish Commission, and the Human Services Commission. So, yeah, a lot more than last year.
It's great.
So, finalize our first event of the year, which is going to be Harry Potter night. We're going to have a bunch of like elementary school kids come on Friday night, February 3rd, and we're going to have a lot of like eating booths like Quidditch, potion making, stuff like that, and yeah, it's just going to be a couple hours of fun.
And that'll be at the community center
Yeah.
again? Awesome.
Platform 9.5.
And then as for our next event, which is the Dodgeball and Donuts event. So we reached out to the Issaquah Police Department, and we are looking to partner with them for this, you know, Dodgeball and Donuts event, which this will now be the 2nd time that we've done this. So basically just of it, so that it's just a dodgeball tournament where 5 high school students are paired with 1 police officer, and they just compete in dodgeball and get to eat donuts.
And we have an annual conference about behavioral health issues called State of Mind, which will be taking place in March.
And we're starting to work with council members, Hall and Councilmember Hall, to plan an event to promote some youth civic engagement, specifically the youth board, and possibly not only for, but like other people outside of that, maybe high school and middle school, people like us.
And we're also planning some sort of pet adoption event in late spring, so around April.
Yeah, and then finally we have our annual Issy Kids Triathlon. That date has been settled for June 4th. We haven't worked on it yet, but we know it's gonna happen. Yeah, that's all we got.
Thank you so much.
Outstanding job. Thank you so much. Director's report, a couple of items to touch on. First off, just happy holidays, everyone. Here we are, November 28th. Hard to believe as we're winding down. A little housekeeping. What this means is, you know, historically, we choose not to meet around the December 24th, 25th timeline. So this is likely our last meeting of the year. With that, I shared with you all an email earlier this afternoon. I hope you have a chance to look at it. It's an email I sent out to the department after our department team after the budget was adopted. It highlights not only sort of our core level of service elements that were within the budget, but some of the key highlights of some added resources throughout the department. So it represents the first 2-year budget that the council adopted. So that means 2023 and 2024 budgets were adopted in early November. It doesn't mean we necessarily have flexibility in spending 2024 money in 2023. It's still 2 distinct years worth of budgets. There is a midpoint budget check that'll happen next year, but it won't be as exhaustive of a budget process each and every year. Lots of capital projects are certainly represented within that budget. We will have a certainly busy and exciting year. Some new staff additions, including a real focus within our park operations team on urban forestry and bringing on board an urban forest supervisor. Looking at the terrific work that Jen Fink has done as one park planning person and really looking at a park planning and development division as we start looking at our capital goals. So some real opportunities there for that recruitment of staffing. As in years past, now that budget is adopted, my hope is and plan is that at that January meeting in Park Board, that agenda is filling up quite a bit, it sounds like, but I'll plan on bringing forward our work plan, sort of the major projects work plan. We'll have a chance to talk with Zach and Marlene as chair and vice chair as to really helping to set priorities and work plan priorities for the Park Board as we look into 2023. So more to come as that's developed. I'll probably send that out to all of you as an email, so you have a chance to see that major project work plan prior to the January meeting. I was looking at, and you're right, whoever made this comment, I think Tisha did. It's interesting in hybrid. I don't know where to look. I sincerely don't know where to look. This is really kind of interesting, but anyways, I don't know if you can't see this at all, but this is sort of the 2022 major work plan item. And this is my traveling copy that always goes with me. So it's quite tattered, but it really is an important tracking piece for me as sort of looking at all the divisions in the department and where we're at, what's the status of those. 2022 was a very, very productive year. So I'll also have a chance to highlight our accomplishments from 2022 as we talk about that in 2023. One of our items, how am I doing on time, that we are going to be highlighting as we head into 2023, and I want to give you all an update on, is pickleball. You might recall going back to 2021, sort of in the midst of one of the COVID variant crises, the mayor had a Fit and Fun initiative that incorporated some elements within our park system. One of those elements we piloted midsummer was getting more diversity within on our tennis courts. And so we added in 3 different park locations, 2 pickleball courts in 3 different locations. So a total of 6 pickleball courts were created in mid-2021. As we went through this last summer and had our first full summer of pickleball use, we as staff sort of wanted to take this fall took a little bit of an evaluation approach and how did that work? What went well? What didn't necessarily go well? If any of you follow, pickleball is crazy right now. I'm so glad we did that in 2021. The community has very much enjoyed and appreciated those 6 courts. But we had some learning to do. And so what we're doing with that evaluation work sort of operationally is looking at making some modifications through this winter. And as we head into spring, start looking ahead to spring, summer 2023, we're going to bring with it some operational modifications related to pickleball. We think there's some opportunities at those locations to add some additional striping in some of our parks. Tibbetts Valley Park being one. We had 2 courts striped there. We think there's opportunity to pretty much stripe all the courts for pickleball and allow for flexibility of tennis and pickleball there. Similarly at Central Park, we have also taken a really close look at how do we make sure as we're incorporating pickleball into our park facilities, we're also being a really good neighbor. And where can we add some acoustical screening or some other opportunities to make sure from a proximity standpoint, we're diminishing noise issues and concerns. One of the park locations, Muirwood Park, we've certainly found, I think is just flat out too close to residential neighbors and there's no real acoustical solution there. So as we're adding courts at 2 of those locations, we're going to be not having pickleball at Muirwood. We're also timing this with the improvements at Blackberry Park and that historical pickleball court there within that same neighborhood. So in the end, we're really excited to, I think, be able to respond to this desire for pickleball. We are not in a capital position to just add a giant pickleball complex somewhere. We're not a land-rich community that's able to just add new amenities. So really incorporating our existing facilities and incorporating pickleball into it. We'll be unveiling this again through this winter. But in total, where we had 6 courts this summer that were well loved and well used, we think we can reposition some, but still have what would be 12 or 13 pickleball courts incorporated within our systems. So we'll be sharing this news with the pickleball community and with our neighbors via website and other means. So much more to come there. And then lastly, I touched on it. I think I saw thumbs up, but I just want to, I guess, get a general sense before we leave. It feels like, given, again, size, I think work plan, knowing we will likely have general public that are going to want to come in person, that the Manor seems to be a better location for us as we venture into meetings next year. So Hasanthi, Tisha, I know we've had a chance to look at calendar. It looks like Tibbetts Manor is available, would be available to become our home base. Is there a general sense of thumbs up support for this being home base? If so, that's what we will plan for heading into the new year. So happy holidays all, happy new year. I also love December, just having a chance to reach out to all of you one-on-one. So if you've got feedback you want to give, new park board members, old park board members, as we start heading into 2023, let's find some time to grab some coffee and chat as well. So,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Looks like the next meeting is currently scheduled for January 23rd, 2023. So with that, we'll close out the final meeting of 2022. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.